everyone, it's Jay from Always Late. Today I'm trying to be on time for once, or at least a little early, because we got some awesome news. We got the HBO Lanterns teaser trailer. It dropped early today. It was supposed to drop tomorrow. We got really lucky. It dropped early, and it's about 2 minutes, a little over 2 minutes. So again, it's a teaser trailer, not a whole lot. But it is chock full of fun Easter eggs, and it's awesome, and it's got my brain working overtime with all kinds of fun comic book theories. A little bit of housekeeping. The show is apparently set to release in August, which is awesome. That's such a great timeline. I feel like it's going to be here before we know it. And I do believe that the show ran into some delays. So the fact that we've kind of got a more concrete timeline for when it's going to come out is awesome. And I'm really excited to get more stuff in the future leading up to August. But kind of diving into the trailer itself, prominently, we get to see a lot more of Kyle Chandler and Aaron Pierre portraying Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, respectively. And it's awesome. They are doing such a good job. They're bringing their A game for acting, and it's awesome. They could not have picked two better actors for this. Their portrayal already feels very tense and driven, and I'm excited to see so much more of them. Obviously, if the show was going for a different time period or anything like that, they could have chose someone a little younger for Hal Jordan and kind of kept him around longer. But based on what I think the show's trying to do, I think they picked awesome actors for this, and I am very excited to see more of them. Sort of getting into their portrayal and their performance here, we get to see the dynamic of Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, and it feels tense. They're going for that teacher versus student sort of dynamic, kind of a passing of the torch sort of situation, a legacy situation. Hal obviously being the older one, and he's kind of the reluctant teacher, sort of not ready to give up the title, and Jon's that younger, very eager person trying to take over the mantle or the title of Green Lantern instead of sharing it, which is interesting. I believe at one point this was going to be like a buddy cop situation, but it seems like they're more at odds with each other, and like Jon really just wants to replace Hal. He kind of doesn't seem to like Hal at all, but I do think that can change over the course of the show, and this first teaser just kind of gives us a little bit of drama to kind of sink our teeth into. Prominently, Jon is making comments that he thinks he can be a better Green Lantern, a better superhero, and hold up the oath of the Green Lanterns better than Hal could and save lives.
The Green Lantern's oath is to protect people. And we both know I do a better job of this than you.
I think a lot of this will draw inspiration from the first appearance of Jon Stewart, which was in Green Lantern number 87, released back in 1971. That comic shows a very similar dynamic between Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, where Hal is teaching Jon. He's not sure of him, but they kind of grow to work together and earn respect for each other. And also, just as a little tidbit, there almost seems like there's an earthquake, and that comic book starts with an earthquake. Maybe I'm grasping at straws, but who knows? We'll see later on when we get more. Kind of like I touched on, I do believe this is only the beginning of their relationship, and they will grow to work together, perhaps leading to a tragic betrayal or loss. We could see that in the form of an adaptation of Emerald Twilight, where Hal Jordan becomes Parallax and sort of sacrifices himself and has to pass on that Green Lantern title more forcefully. That could definitely happen if we look at Hal Jordan. He does have white hair and white strands of hair. Obviously, Hal's a bit older here, so it could just be his age, but in the comics, Hal Jordan does get white streaks in his hair on the side, sort of that Reed Richards thing, and that is explained in the Geoff Johns run to be because of Parallax. Who knows, though? That's just speculation at this time. Hal Jordan could just retire. Maybe he gets a happy ending, Jon Stewart becomes the next Green Lantern, and they still can rely on each other, correspond, Maybe John can still get advice from Hal in the future. Hal Jordan is recognized as having been a big shot in his day with the sheriff or law enforcement officer, Kane here. She recognizes that, and they have their own relationship here.
This is my town. You're a big shot. Noted. But stay the fuck out of my way.
But maybe, like I said, Hal's time has just passed, and it's time for him to pass that torch on. Kind of dialing it back, though, we don't know much about each character's origins in the show yet. Hal's origins could be that he's a veteran. There's a scene where an unidentified person is jumping out of a plane. That could relate back to the New Frontier story, where Hal Jordan was a veteran in the Korean War, I believe. But Hal Jordan might just be a test pilot still. So we haven't gotten much on that. Still a very possibility, though. We also don't know much about John's origins. He could be an architect, but based on a couple of scenes here, there's one shot where he's holding a gun, and honestly, just the way he moves and he talks, I feel like they're probably going to go with the New 52 sort of side of things, where he is a Marine. You see a lot of that in issue 25 of the New 52 Green Lantern Corps run in the 0 Year arc, where he is portrayed as a Marine, and I definitely think that's what they're going to go with here. Sort of pivoting away from the actors and the characters and how they're portrayed here, though, what has easily caused the most controversy in this teaser is the costume. There's a very quick shot of costume on some hangers getting kind of moved a little bit, and that's all we get to see. We don't get to see any characters in the suit. People hate it. They hate it. I've seen a lot of comments already calling them beige lanterns, brown lanterns, so the colors are just off. But, credit where credit is due. I do think they are basing this on the Earth 1 suit. It's a flight suit sort of looking situation. And obviously, we don't know if this is the final suit. We don't know who's going to wear it. We don't know if Hal wore it or if John's going to wear it. We don't know if this is just one suit of many. We do see some other suits sort of bagged. You get little windows through the plastic there where you see very similar looking suits. But these could just be, some throwaways. We don't even know if the Green Lanterns themselves are going to wear it. Maybe it's a plot from whoever the antagonist is or whatever conflict is here. We don't know. Kind of looking at the suit objectively, though, there is some black leather sort of looks to it. The colors are more of that dark olive green with some other darker, more vibrant greens, like forest greens on the shoulders. And the logo itself looks really good, but it is pretty small in all honesty and doesn't, take up as much space as one would hope. But again, it's not on an actual person. So theory-wise, I know I have seen some people speculating that this suit could become far more vibrant when an actual lantern is wearing it with their ring on. The lanterns in the comics are often portrayed as being able to generate the suit out of hard light. It just kind of appears on them. If you've seen the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie, that's a full CG thing. They could mesh the two here and kind of bring the suit more alive. But as it is right now, I do think it could use some work. Hopefully it's not the final suit. I think looking at the rest of the DCU, it definitely doesn't feel like it's going to fit. And if I were to look at a lineup of, a Green Lantern here, whether it's John or Hal standing next to David Cornsweet, Superman, it doesn't work in my opinion. We kind of gave Guy Gardner's suit a pass because of the whole Maxwell Lord situation. Yeah, Hal or John don't really get that excuse here, so who knows? Kind of moving away from the costume itself and more into other parts of the costume design, though, we get to see a lot more of the ring. We wouldn't have a Green Lantern if we didn't have a ring. Oddly enough, there's only one. We keep getting shots of it even before this teaser trailer, but it seems like there's only the one ring, which kind of raises the stakes, I feel, and adds to the dynamic between Hal and John and forces it into that passing of the torch situation. If there is only one, then they can't be buddy cops. They have to work together and move past each other's differences to share this ring, and one of them has to give it up. Looking at the ring itself, though, it looks pretty cool. It looks badass, I gotta say. It's got this sort of ancient feeling, like it was actually forged long ago on Oa and was made. It's it's not some weird hard light construct. It's not pure energy, but it is an actual artifact or object. It's got this gold lining on it that I really like, and putting on my tinfoil hat here and speculating, that could be related to the yellow impurity that we see in the Green Lantern comics. So if you're unaware, the Green Lantern's main weakness in the Silver Age going forward is the color yellow, and that also kind of extends to gold a little bit. Yeah, and I think this could be hinting towards that. Maybe this ring in particular has that yellow impurity. If you look at Guy's ring in the Superman movie or in Peacemaker, it doesn't really seem to have that same gold lining or any yellow at all. So it could just be Hal's ring here. It could explain why he becomes Parallax and no one else does, because maybe this ring in particular has that yellow impurity, or maybe they're going to change some things up, and maybe Parallax or some former user sort of did something to this ring. Because kind of going back to those origins, we don't know if Hal got the ring from Abin Sur or not. We don't even know if Sinestro mentored Hal, so there are a lot of questions still relating to this. But just looking at the ring itself, again, I think it looks awesome. And I think it really relates to the fantasy aspect of Green Lantern. I don't think a lot of people remember that in the Golden Age, in Alan Scott's day, the first Green Lantern, it was more of a fantasy title. And even in, the Silver Age with Hal Jordan, it was a sci-fi fantasy. It wasn't just science fiction. It's not like everything was always explained away with science, kind of comparing to Barry Allen, The Flash, where that was very much so just pure science fiction with time travel, and Barry was a crime scene analyst and a chemist, but Hal Jordan kind of went on these more fantastical adventures, even when in space, and was often referred to as the Emerald Gladiator and other things. So I think this kind of reins that in, and you see that even more with the Lantern battery itself. We get a shot of the Lantern battery, and it 100% fits this aesthetic. Feels very Golden Age, and maybe could harken back to Alan Scott again. Alan Scott's origins, if you're unaware, are completely different from the other Green Lanterns. He's not part of the Green Lantern Corps. The battery is related to magic, but this battery itself looks like that to me. So maybe they're going to play with some things here and change some things, and it'll kind of relate to that. Lastly, in costume design, I just have one question. Where's Hal Jordan's jacket? If whether he was a veteran or a test pilot, he's always got that jacket on. Hal Jordan's origins are that he lost his dad. He always kind of wore that jacket, even when it was too big. So it's very interesting here. In the trailer or the teaser, he is wearing the same jacket kind of throughout everything. There's no name tag. It does almost have a little bit of a military jacket feel, so maybe it's one from his own service or something, if that is the route they go. But either way, it's not the jacket how I imagine it. If you see here for reference, it's always got that name tag. It's always got that flight jacket feel, and this doesn't seem like it. So I don't know. I'm holding out hope, but I'm a little worried for that. Getting away from the characters, though, and more so looking at the setting of the teaser and what we get here, most notably, this is not Coast City. If you're a Green Lantern fan, you know Hal Jordan's home turf is Coast City. This is definitely not that. Coast City is Northern California, right on that coastline. It's sort of a San Francisco Bay kind of feel, and we are definitely not there. We look landlocked here. It's very rural. From what I could find, apparently it's set in Nebraska here. And I don't know if that's true, but it definitely feels somewhere in that part of the U.S. with these open fields and small towns. You get this establishing shot here, and you just know that it's small and condensed, but it's got a charm to it. I'm open-minded. I'm happy to see where it's going to go. As you go through the teaser here, it's got that Western old school feel. Townsfolk are wearing cowboy hats. They live on ranches and work on ranches. And, there's that small town law. It's not the FBI. These are sheriffs and deputies, and, they don't want you to get in their way. It gives it all a very grounded feel, which leaves itself open to seed mystery and secrets and I definitely think that's where it's going to go. They've mentioned that this is based on True Detective a little bit and sort of that whole vibe. So I can definitely see that working its way in here with this small town feel. Opposing, though, this is definitely not a space opera. It's not cosmic. This is as far from the opposite as possible from that, being a small town. And, that can be a little disappointing. When a lot of people think Green Lantern, they expect it to be in space. He is a space cop. That's how you pitch Green Lantern. But to play devil's advocate, Hal spent a lot of time on Earth back in the day. A lot of his Silver Age comics were on Earth, even going into sort of the Copper Age or Bronze Age and modern. He spends a lot of time on Earth. So there is room for both of those kinds of stories. Let's just hope that in the future they do not keep him on Earth all the time. And maybe if John takes over the mantle, maybe he'll go up into space and we'll get more of those epic space fantasy opera adventures. Other than that, we don't really get to see a whole lot of the setting. It's unfortunate, but hopefully we'll learn more. Digging into the actual plot, or more so the conflict here, as I mentioned before, it is going to be based on True Detective, so this is probably going to be more of a slow burn drama. There's going to be a lot of suspense and mystery. Other than that, we don't know much. Obviously, throughout the trailer, the way that they talk to each other, there's going to be a lot of conflict between Hal and John. I think that's going to be a very big primary focus. Other than that, we know that this is still part of James Gunn's universe, and this whole first sort of act of his movies and shows are called the Gods and Monsters chapter. So kind of thinking on that, and again, putting on the tinfoil hat here, I have some theories, but let's look at what we see. We see a lot of people with guns, whether it's small town law or militia is unclear, but they're toting assault rifles and heavy weaponry. So it could be a militia of some sort, some kind of private military, maybe being contracted for something, or maybe these people don't like the Lanterns meddling in their affairs, so they're bringing out all the big guns that they have and attacking them. Regardless of that, the town seems to be taking some serious damage. There's a shot there with Hal kind of looking a little banged up. There's some fire. The buildings are damaged. First thought, this could be an earthquake. And sort of nodding back to that first appearance of John Stewart in issue 87, there it starts with an earthquake, so that's not outlandish to say. Otherwise, more possible situation is that this is some kind of attack, whether it's by some aliens or some human entity or force. They're packing some serious heat, and we're going to see how the Lanterns respond to that. So here's where I kind of put that tinfoil hat back on, and honestly is the major inspiration for making this video, the ideas that I had that I kind of feel really fired up about. The conflict, who I think the antagonists are going to be for this show, or at least this season. So it has been confirmed that this actor, Paul Ben Victor, is an alien supposedly called Anton. Obviously, he doesn't look like much of an alien here, which leaves us with a couple of options. He could be in disguise, maybe some advanced alien tech or hologram sort of thing. Some theories suggest he is actually Atrocitus, the Red Lantern, and Garrett Dillahunt here, who is also a casted villain in the show, is actually going to be Black Hand. Those are fun theories. I would totally love to see those if that is what's going to happen. But what I actually think is going to be the case is that Paul Ben Victor is actually a Quardian. So, for those who don't know, the Quardians, otherwise known as the Weaponeers, are from the antimatter universe Quord. They actually make their first appearance in Green Lantern number 2, all the way back in 1960. It's a really deep cut for Green Lantern lore. This universe of Quord is ruled by evildoers. So they're all evil. The laws are making sure that you do evil stuff instead of the reflection being our positive universe where supposedly everything's ruled by good. Well, a small group of Quardians in the antimatter universe are not like the evildoers. They're good. They're like us. They want to do good, and so they're seeking refuge in our universe. One of them passes through a bridge to transport universes to kind of learn our ways and see if, Earth is good for them, if they can live here, and if it can be a safe haven for them. Thankfully, for the Quardians, their appearance is very humanoid. They're bald, no eyebrows, but other than that, they look like any other human, basically. So it's really easy for them to pass as a normal person and kind of not draw attention to themselves. However, when this one Cordian passes through the bridge, one of the evildoers from the antimatter universe, known as a destroyer, follows our Cordian named Teleteg to hunt him down. Teleteg requires Green Lantern's help. Green Lantern stops the Weaponeers. He fights the destroyer and destroys the bridge between universes. Well, the good Cordians were able to cross over, so Teleteg, reveals that the plan of the Cordians is to steal the power batteries that the Green Lanterns use from our universe. Why would they want to do that? It's kind of up in the air. It's just advanced weaponry that they can use and make more technology and weapons with. The Cordians do become a recurring villain group for some time, following up on those plans to steal the power battery in issue number 3 of Green Lantern. This displays that they have immense weaponry like tanks, domes/shields, and guns, all of which are yellow to harm Green Lantern, of course. Not to mention advanced technology to create whole cities worth of holograms, bridges to other universes, and issue number 4 actually reveals that they even have huge robots. They can send missiles out that have unique radiation, and they even have a whole coliseum worth of entertainment to make people, duke it out. Looping back to my original theory, I think Paul is a Cordian, perhaps the chief weaponeer, leading many other weaponeers in a secret plot to take over Earth, or maybe harvest energy or materials from our universe. Maybe they're looking for something specific in our universe. I think Garrett Dillahunt is likely the destroyer, or a destroyer. He could be one among many, and will be a large antagonist for the Lanterns to fight, while Paul is kind of, pulling things and strings behind the scenes. I think something to support these claims is the fact that Paul and the Weaponeers kind of look similar. It's not an insult, it's just an observation. Paul does not have a head full of hair. Cordians also do not have a head full of hair. So the nose, I feel like there's just a striking resemblance there that can work in the benefit if this really is what's going to happen, if he really is a weaponeer. Additionally, there is this shot of some advanced technology being pressed up against John Stewart's head. It's like a weapon of some sort, and it just so happens to be yellow. Now, this could be a stretch, but the Cordians later support Sinestro and are even responsible for forging Sinestro's yellow ring. So a lot of their weaponry and technology, even in these first 3 issues that we see them, are yellow. Like, they make it that way. I don't think it's that much of a stretch. I also suspect that this shot of John Stewart running with a bulky backpack is actually him running with the power battery because the Weaponeers want to steal it, just like in issue number 3. So I think maybe they want it because it's going to help be a power source for some kind of weapon that they have, or maybe it's going to help repair the bridge. That way they can bring over more people. So maybe their bridge got damaged whenever they came over. Who knows? Either way, I think it's going to be a very integral piece of technology for them and that they're going to want it. What else supports these claims? It has been stated, like I mentioned before, that Earth 1 is a reference / an inspiration for this show. We see it with the suit primarily. I think that's what's drawing everyone's attention. However, in Lanterns Volume number 2, guess who plays a very huge part of the story? The Cordians. The Cordians are a very large antagonist in Lanterns Volume 2, and they forge the Yellow Lantern Corps in that story and serve the Guardian. So I think even if you're just focusing on the Earth 1 universe, there's still a very large chance that our antagonists are going to be the Cordians. And if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, this could all lead to Krona, who's a very ancient being in the DC universe, and the Anti-Monitor could actually end up being the big bad of the DCU. I know there have been some discussions about who it's going to be, who it's all going to lead up to, and what it's going to lead up to. And I think they've mentioned they want to stay away from Darkseid for now because of the whole, Thanos resemblance thing, even though Darkseid was created first. I think they have stated they want to stay away from that, and the Anti-Monitor is one of those options next that makes a lot of sense. But that is all a theory. It's just a theory, a game theory, a Lanterns theory, if you will. So who knows what it's actually going to pan out to, but I think this has a lot of merit, and who knows? I genuinely think there are high chances that this is what's going to happen. Want to hear what y'all think, though? Maybe I'm crazy. I do think there's also a possibility that the conflict could be related to the Manhunters, but I feel less confident about that. Geoff Johns issues 1 through 3 kind of brings the Manhunters back in the early 2000s, and that is definitely a possibility as well. But again, I think it's less likely, even more less likely, but another sort of shot in the dark here is I think it could be related to Hal Jordan's origin. He originally gets the ring from an alien who dies called Abin Sur, and his son kind of comes back and wants that ring because he feels like Hal doesn't deserve it. And I think that could play into this as well. But most prominently, I do feel very strongly it could be the Cordians from the Antimatter Universe Cord. They're going to portray their role as the Weaponeers and are, gearing up for some kind of takeover here and want the power battery from the Lanterns. The Blackest Night and other stories that Geoff Johns wrote could be hinted at. I know that's what a lot of people want to happen. They want eventually to build up to the Blackest Night storyline and have all the Lantern Corps established. I don't think that'll play a major part in the current story, but I do think there is room to start alluding to that and maybe hint at the Blackest Night prophecy in the show. Kind of looking at the world building, though, and getting away from the conflict side of things and more conspiracy, there's a snippet at the end where Hal and John are talking in the car, and John asks Hal, does he talk to the other Lanterns? And Hal says no, basically. He says he's the only human, and he makes a nod to Chip, the Squirrel Lantern, but he says the rest are aliens, so there's really no talking to him.
Have you ever talked with the other lanterns?
I'm the only human. They're aliens. One of them's a fucking squirrel.
That kind of brings up a couple of questions. One, Hal's not acknowledging Guy Gardner, so maybe this is set before that. Obviously, Superman was around for like 3 years or so before the events of the movie, so it's possible that Guy is kind of newish as well. But it makes sense that Hal, being the first Lantern and as old as he is, he's probably been kicking around a lot longer, and maybe one, he doesn't know about Guy, or two, maybe Guy just shows up a little bit later and this is sort of earlier. John Stewart is the third human Green Lantern, so he comes after Guy Gardner and is sort of a substitute teacher, like the trailer says, for him. But focusing on the whole not talking to the other Lanterns thing and only acknowledging the aliens one, that is kind of worrying. It sort of leaves this question of, like, does Hal do anything in space, or is he only a Earth-based Green Lantern? Guy Gardner acknowledges the Green Lantern Corps in the Superman movie, so it sort of begs this question of, like, does Hal not want anything to do with them? In the comics, he's often portrayed as the greatest Green Lantern ever, and while he does make mistakes and sort of is a reckless hotshot and going against the rules, he gets stuff done, and the Guardians can respect that usually. So it just sort of leaves a lot of questions here of how that's going to fit into the larger cosmic scene for the DCU. Anyway, I know that was a lot to unpack, and a lot of it is honestly theories and based on the comics, but that's kind of what I wanted to do here. I wanted to go through this trailer and sort of speculate and offer my knowledge from being a Green Lantern fan. I've been one forever. Geoff Johns' storyline is amazing, and I've read it through a couple of times, and I love it every single time I do. Otherwise, I'm collecting everything I can Green Lantern, and hopeful for the future, and maybe one day we'll get Kyle Rayner. Who knows? But either way, I just want to say thank you for watching and taking the time. And if you have any other speculations, theories, comments, please leave them below, and I would love to generate that discussion with y'all. Speaking as Jay from Always Late here, I just want to say thank y'all for watching this video, and hopefully, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome. I've taken a very long hiatus, longer than I meant to, with this channel. Life just got busy. I got a lot of things that I'm planning and got in the works, but I'm excited to kind of take a step back into this world of video editing and making. I've got lots of other ideas sort of on the back burner right now, so I'm hoping this is a step in the right direction to get back in. I just really wanted to seize the opportunity with all the discussion going on here because I'm such a big Green Lantern fan. Either way, like I said, I've got some ideas, so I Hope I don't take a year or more again this time. And I hope to see y'all soon again. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I really can't thank y'all enough. Have a good one.